People.
Well,
Cool.
it's great to meet you, and I have to tell you, I really enjoyed your work on Moonhaven. I love that show, and your character was
Ah,
so amazing.
oh, I like that show too. And the people who watched it seem to really like it. And then unfortunately, with everything going on at the studios and cutbacks and stuff, I think it just, was a little bit of a casualty. But I really like working on it too. Great cast, lovely part of the world to work in, Ireland. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Well, how is an audio drama like this recorded? Are you all together like a play, or is it more like an animated series where you do all your parts separately?
Yeah, it changes all the time. Unfortunately, in the second season that we just completed recording, I had to do all of my stuff on my own because I was in the middle of finishing a TV show and then starting another TV show straight after it. So I did all of my stuff on my own. And then I think that stuff ended up getting sent to Phil Lamar and Dame Helen Mirren. So I think they had the chance to listen to Moriarty, but I was only listening to temp people because I was on a bit of a clock.
Wow, that must be, is that more difficult than when you're doing it all together?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but there's challenges in all aspects of acting. When you're on set, you've got lights pointed in your face and you've got people walking around behind you or in front of you. And then, when you're doing films, there's a lot of waiting around, but you always have to be ready to go. And I just think there's different challenges in all different aspects of acting, and that's why you get paid.
Right. And speaking of challenges, can you talk about what it's like to sound more like Moriarty than yourself and to do a slightly different accent than your own?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I can really bring to this work that the audience are going to be exposed to is my voice.
Mhm.
Obviously, with me, when I'm working, I wear slightly Moriarty vibe clothes, at least what I think is slightly more Moriarty, kind of tight necked things that make me feel constricted. I might wear a suit jacket all day or something kind of tight and slightly conservative. But in terms of the voice, you know, Moriarty's very deliberate in the way that he speaks. I think Moriarty would probably say that he doesn't make too many mistakes. He's a little conceited in that kind of notion. So with that in mind, I slightly slowed down the way that I would normally speak. And then his voice is even kind of deeper than my voice. He seems to kind of sit in this register. And I think because of that, it kind of lends to him this slightly pretentious, snobby element of authority that I think he's very attached to.
Right. He has a lot in common with what we typically think of Sherlock Holmes, thinking
Right,
he's the smartest guy in the world.
right. And
Yeah.
there's something very interesting about those type of people because there's a lot of ego going on there, and those people, even though I'm sure both Holmes and Moriarty are extremely intelligent, you can't always be right all of the time. And when you define your personality on that, sooner or later, you're going to get found out. And I'm sure that's very painful for those type of people.
Right. It's actually funny because I'm married to a college professor. So, yeah. Strangely
Okay.
enough, he is right most of the time. It's very annoying, actually.
Oh, that's super irritating. Yeah. Um, oh well. In those moments where he's wrong, you just have to make sure that he's fully aware of it.
Oh yeah, I'm like, you're wrong, you're wrong. That's fun, yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you have any input into the story or your dialogue at all? You just go by what they tell you.
Well, certainly season one, because I was one of the people that put the show together. I was sat around with Treefort, the company that makes the show alongside Audible, and we were actually trying to create another show, and that was proving to be problematic. And in one of our lunch periods where we were just sat around talking about nothing in particular, we started to mention this character of Moriarty and why isn't there a show about Moriarty? He's so charismatic, he's intelligent, he's a genius, he's a brilliant mathematician, he's a chess grandmaster, he's a paranoid delusionist. Why is there not a show that centers on him as opposed to Holmes? How has he become this character? So I think certainly for season 1, I was a little bit more involved in especially creating Moriarty. And then by the time we got to season 2, you know, I just finished doing Moonhaven and just finished doing press for Moonhaven. So I was a little detached from that. But I can certainly still say, I don't think that is exactly how he would say it. I think there's a better word choice or a better way to organize that sentence for Moriarty, because, you know, I'm English, so I always feel like we have a slightly closer relationship with the language, because you guys don't speak English, you guys speak American. It's
That's
totally
true.
different.
That's true. And do you know if there are plans already for a 3rd season?
Well, I mean, we're always talking about it, and you know, I think Audible have been very happy with how the show has kind of come together, how easily it's made, how enthusiastic we all are. And obviously season 1 did well and was a big success for them. And I'm sure with Dame Helen Mirren being associated with season 2, we're hoping that season 2 continues on that success. So if it's a successful show that everyone seems to be happy with, I'd be surprised if they didn't think about doing a 3rd season. But at this point, you know, everything's up in the air.
And do you think that, like, down the road they would ever turn this into a regular drama for TV?
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about that as an idea. I think it's something that obviously contractually is an option at some point. I think both Audible and myself and Treefort are very keen on kind of building out the fandom, so that if it were to turn into a TV show, you've already got this built-in group of people that have loved it for a while. So I think it's definitely something that we are all keen to explore. And we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. And were you a fan of Sherlock Holmes before this? I mean, obviously you helped come up with the idea.
Yeah, I love that world. I grew up knowing about the Hound of the Baskervilles, because that was the kind of Sherlock Holmes story that like really kind of grabbed me. And I used to live in Germany when I was a kid until I was 10, but all of my extended family lived in England, where my parents are from. So we would take road trips probably twice a year from Germany to England, which was about a day and a half drive to get there. And this is obviously pre-internet. This is still when books were on cassettes. And we would listen to quite a few kind of like Sherlock Holmes stories for kids, because obviously not the like fully adult stuff. So I knew about Holmes and Watson and being a detective and Baker Street and, you know, the mysteries of London and living in that time when I was a kid. I think it's a world that has always intrigued me. And yeah, they're just really fantastic characters. I mean, you know, Holmes and Moriarty going up against each other as arch nemesis is great, because they're both geniuses, they're both paranoid, they both have issues dealing with humans. So in a lot of ways, they're both the same side of two coins, or two sides of the same coin, if you will. And you know, it makes it really interesting for them to go against each other, because they understand each other so well, but they're obviously, you know, on two different sides of the argument.
Right. And I have to ask, are you good at math?
No, I'm terrible at math. Terrible.
Okay. Well, I guess that's why you became an actor, not a mathematician.
Yeah, that part of my brain does not work. I'm really good at certain puzzles like crosswords and chess, and Scrabble is kind of how my mind works.
Sure.
But I can't do kind of simple multiplication or subtraction or anything like that. So I'm kind of embarrassingly bad at math.
Well, that's funny. And so what do the fans, I've been watching season 2, what do the fans have to look forward to that you can tell us about season 2?
Well, without without revealing too many spoilers, obviously, I think the show gets bigger. You know, in the first season, I think we're still figuring out the world and the characters and how big can we get. And obviously in season 2, we moved to the city of New York, a very charismatic city to set anything, but certainly a kind of intriguing mystery. Moriarty is still working on the other side of the law, whereby, you know, police and people who are working in, you know, anything associated with the law are kind of out to get him. So he still has to work in the shadows in a lot of ways. And the story itself just becomes bigger. It's more like it's more like the world the world of Moriarty and Holmes is actually on a global stage now, you know. So the stakes are bigger, the crime seems bigger. What's at stake is more troubling, not just for Holmes and Moriarty, but for, you know, the city of New York. So everything's just a little bit more ambitious.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've really been enjoying it so far. I actually went back and listened to the first season because it's my first audiobook, actually. I'm not.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm so glad that was the first one that you picked. That's great.
Actually, first this century. You know, when we were kids, we'd listen to the old time radio shows, you know, that kind of thing. But it's very different now. It's much more sophisticated and
yeah.
And I love the background. I'd like to listen to the background noises. Because
I thought we really achieved what it must have felt like to be in London in that time, you know, the cobbled streets and the horses on carriages and stuff. And hopefully we achieved the same thing with New York. Certainly when I was listening to it, I was like, man, it feels like I'm in that city. It feels like I'm creeping around in the back streets of New York, you know, in a time gone by. So yeah, it's great.
And I like when the little honky tonk piano comes on, it makes you think of that time and that place. It's great.
Yeah.
And the cast is amazing. You guys do such a wonderful job. And have you actually met Helen Mirren before? Or
you know, I met Helen Mirren in passing years ago. I went for an audition that her husband was doing, and I must have been, I think, the last person that day, because about 20 minutes before we were finishing up with our conversation, his wife, Dame Helen Mirren, showed up, and obviously I was like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And we had like a very brief conversation in passing. So I have met her. I don't think she'd remember. I hope she didn't, because I didn't get the part. And fingers crossed we'll get a chance to continue to work together in the future.
Yeah, that would be great. Do you guys don't have like a wrap party since you're all in different parts of the world?
Well, we're having like an event party tomorrow. I'm in New York currently. So we're doing like a kind of, you know, listening to little snippets from the show, and then, you know, food and drinks and all that kind of stuff at a kind of party in New York tomorrow. So that would kind of kick off the whole second series.
Good. That'll be fun. And well, I appreciate you talking to me today, and it's been great. And I wish you all the luck with it.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's nice to meet you too, and fingers crossed you enjoyed the second season as much as you enjoyed the first.
So far, so good. Thank you.
Cool.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Dom.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.